All right, ready to start. Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to talk about a topic that is close to our heart, but also part of our daily work, developer productivity and happiness. My name is Silvia, and I'm a product manager within developer experience at TomTom, and I'm here together with me to share our journey.
Yeah, and I'm Jeremy Hartley. I'm the former head of platform engineering at Miro, and before that, me and Silvia worked together on developer productivity and developer experience at TomTom, which actually has 2,000 engineers, not 2,000 people, so it's even a bit bigger than that. So yeah, why are we talking about this topic, and what have we got to say today? As a software developer or DevOps engineer, your work can sometimes, or unfortunately quite often, feel like you're just pushing this big rock up the mountain every day, like Sisyphus. And that's what you do all day long. And then 5:30 comes round, you go home, you let the rock go, and it falls down to the bottom of the hill. And then the next day you start again. And if you're unlucky, this can happen multiple times a day. You'll get interrupted by pointless meetings or other distractions. And by the end of the day, you don't really feel like you've got anything done or anything significant. And next slide, please. What you really want is at work to be able to get into a flow state, to be able to achieve meaningful things in meaningful increments. And by the end of the day, you want to have a sense that, you more or less finished what you planned, or at least something that looks remotely like that. And having this kind of sense of satisfaction, next slide please, in our opinion is what leads to a good sense of happiness at work. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Let's start with an icebreaker.
Yeah, indeed. It's early in the morning, so let's break some ice, and I'll let the organizer do the magic to have this Slido code again. So we have some questions. We want to see what's the perception that you have on productivity. And the first question we want to ask you, if we can also see the questions, is what makes you productive at work, right? I'll give you some time, but let's be creative, and then we're going to share also what kind of answers we usually collect. Coffee, yes, I love that.
Yeah, that's short feedback loops, that's a great one. Focus, agency. Yeah, focus I think is definitely a key one. Results, nice.
I love this question because every time we ask it, we got different feedback. So it's so nice to see that there are
clear goal. Beer, of course, after coffee though, or before coffee. Yeah, great answers though. Focus and coffee and results and short feedback loops seem to be the main ones.
Nice colleagues, getting things done, gaining new insights. So yeah, you can see that already there are different dimensions. So still people are responding, that's good, meaning that we're all...
And I'm assuming Nix is Unix and not the Dutch for nothing. Okay. Shall we go to the next one?
Yeah, all right. So let's move to the next slide then, and the next question. Do you believe that there is a link between productivity and happiness?
All right, great. Well, I think we can finish then today. We're done.
We're done. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and then finally, the question is, what are some really bad ways to measure productivity? Yeah, lines of code is a classic one.
Hours worked is also a good one, because sometimes people think that that's a starting point.
Dora, space, that's interesting. Number of pull requests is kind of the new lines of code. Indeed. Amount of commits.
Velocity, I see also a popular one. Clicks, the amount of clicks, fine.
Yeah. Story points, indeed, is another one. It's kind of, again, the new lines of code, or it was the new lines of code about 8 years ago. And then people just started adding more and more story points to simple tasks. All right.
All right, great insights, thanks. And then if we, have the screen back.
Yeah.
All right, so what you see here is all the resources and references that inspired this talk and also our daily work. You might have come across the Accelerate book. Somebody mentioned it also in the questions. The space framework, we're going to talk more about it. But we also left here some books if you want to start by applying some behavioral changes in your team, or if you want to connect the topic of productivity with flow. We also left here some articles. We can deep dive more afterwards, or feel free to reach out if you want to know more. Now, those are the influences, but actually there are some elements that the book don't tell.
Yeah, I mean, with some exceptions, the books don't talk a lot about happiness, or it's one little paragraph somewhere, but obviously we think this is very important, and a lot of organizations think that, if you can make your engineers happy, then they will be productive. You give them nice food, you give them a nice work environment, you give them toys, outings, let them go to conferences like this, they'll be happy, and then they'll reward the company by working hard. But we, and also modern research, really believes that this is really putting the horse before the cart, and that the causality or the direction of that relation is a little bit the other direction. So if people have at work what they need to be productive, you're not constantly blocked by stupid things. You don't have 4 meetings spread out during the day and other constant interruptions, and at the end of the day, you've managed to get some things done that you can feel satisfied and proud about. That is, in the long term, what's going to lead you to be satisfied with your job much more than, high pay or free food or, nice design at work. And the good thing about this is that happiness is a bit of a fickle thing. There must be 1,000 philosophers that have thought about how to make people happy, millions of books about this, whole religions. It's not that easy to influence, but it's a lot. Productivity is also not that easy to influence, but it's significantly easier than happiness. And when it comes to being productive, it's obviously important to have a baseline. And next slide, please. And if you can't measure something, it's very hard to improve it, as one of the great management consultants of the last century said. And this is why a lot of the work around developer productivity is based on the ability, or starts with the measuring productivity. But how do you do this? And what we've found as practitioners in this field, and also from speaking to other practitioners in this field, there's a kind of a journey that a lot of people go on, and it's very similar to a classic Gartner hype curve. Kind of starts with realizing there's a problem, and then you get to this kind of peak of super high hopes, and then you get to this troughs of depression when it doesn't really work, and then eventually you get to like a more mature level where you're looking at things more pragmatically. And we're going to talk a little bit about this journey to try and save you a little bit of time if you start trying to implement this, or at least to make you realize what's happening when things go wrong.
Indeed, indeed. So how did our journey start? How could your journey start, or might have started already? You start realizing that you have a problem, or maybe it's a gut feeling. You can think of, receiving some pressure from the business that you're not delivering value fast enough, or your customers are not happy, your manager is not happy, your management board is not happy, or maybe you're just curious and you want to explore the field. So you go on an adventure and you do start to look at the problem, to understand what challenges you have, and now you want to move forward. And you're actually so committed, you look at all the books available, you start implementing the framework, you read a lot of articles, and then you find your DORA religion. You start applying everything that you read into your daily work. You start looking at one metric to rule them all, because you're really passionate, you're really motivated to influence one metric so that you can improve productivity in your team, even in your company, in your organization, and you are all set to start. So you start thinking of the metrics, and let's assume that you want to apply some of the framework that already exists. So let's reiterate a little bit more on some literature. The Accelerate book, or also known as the DORA metrics in other research. So the Accelerate book highlights that there is a causal relationship between software delivery performance and and the success of an organization. So what this actually means is that if you manage to measure and improve those 4 metrics that you see here, so deployment frequency, how frequently does your team could release code to production? Is it multiple days per week, weekly, monthly? And how quickly you can deploy, you can merge. So for lead time for changes, it is measuring how long does it take to merge the code to master until it is actually running in production. And those are 2 indicators of the speed, the velocity of your code. And then 2 indicators about the stability. So change failure rate, what is the percentage of changes that failed and resulted in a rollback, in a bug, or in a service degradation, and mean time to restore. So how quickly you can restore a service when there's an incident or when a customer is reporting a bug. And you want to keep those 2 metrics as low as possible. So you start by identifying 1 metric, and that's what the Accelerated book was also recommending, to apply several ways to improve all of those metrics. But then the space framework came 3 years later during the pandemic, and it offered a new framework. So you actually have 5 new dimensions that describe some other contributing factors of productivity. So satisfaction and well-being, performance, activity, communication and collaboration, efficiency and flow. So those are other dimensions that might impact productivity. So you can read those frameworks, those articles, and start picking your metrics. You're all set. So you pick 1 metric, and then you pick the tool. Now those are, again, some of our experiences, some of the known tooling that are available on the DORA part, on the quantitative metrics on productivity. You have Linear B, Jellyfish, some of them that we are quoting on our experience. But you also have some qualitative insight that you can get on the perception of productivity, right? So some surveying that you can run in an organization, DX, Office Vibe as the one that we tested. And in case you're already using Slack in your company as a collaboration tool, do not underestimate that there are some modules related to productivity. But again, here, you're picking 1 metric, you're picking 1 tool, you're maybe building something in-house, but you are all set.
So, now you reach the exciting phase. You've picked your metric, you've got your tool, you get the whole company in a room like this and get them all excited about this, and then, you tell everybody to stay focused and stick to the plan. And maybe in the first month or 2, you start to see a few little light points, but maybe you're not quite seeing the results you wanted, but you tell people just stay focused, stick to the plan. At a certain point, maybe one of your senior engineers starts doubting this approach, but, you just ignore him, tell him, we've got to stay focused, we've got to just keep doing this for a bit longer, it's going to work. I've read the book. And gradually, people start dropping off one by one, and at a certain point, you're the only person left that's kind of standing in front of this empty room, saying, stay focused, stick to the plan, guys. And by this point, you've clearly entered the state of denial, but you've got so much of your own credibility hanging on this. This has got to work, Nicole Fosgren made it work. And next slide, please. At a certain point, even you accept, this is not really working. And you hit rock bottom, the party's over. And where do you go to from here, You've invested so much in this, you really truly believe this like a new convert. And well, the only good thing about hitting rock bottom is that the only way is up. And over to Silvia.
So indeed, what have we learned so far? How can you move forward? So as of now, at this point in your journey, you have learned that one size doesn't fit all, so you cannot apply 1 metric to the whole organization, to different teams, because there's no standard metric that could work for everybody. Then when picking the tool, you were really into the metrics and the tool, but you never stopped by looking at the definition, and that's your realization moment, because you need to take a step back and discuss within your team what problem you want to address, and how can you get started within your team. team, how can you build an inspection routine in your team and become accountable for those metrics that we were so ambitious to measure for the whole company? But let's start with our team. Let's drive that change. And that's where you see the light at the end of the tunnel, because everything becomes a little bit more clear. So you start by defining team-specific metrics, and you're all set. So that's where the journey arrives.
Yeah, so I'm just going to let you eyeball this journey again. Again, it's very much like a classic Gartner hype cycle. And next slide, please. So once you've come to this kind of realization that actually you need to look at things team by team and also situation by situation, because these change over time, finally you have to make teams accountable for and empowered to manage their own metrics, decide for themselves, this is what we want to improve on, this is how we're going to gather it. But where do you start? So Silvia and I are going to look at 4 scenarios now where we look at different scenarios that teams could be in and metrics associated with that. So classic scenario is you need to bring a new feature or product to market. You need to learn quickly, think, adding generative AI to your product. You don't know what works, and you need to test and learn quickly. Some signals that you might be on track is user engagement is going up, or alternatively that product management and design find it really easy to run A/B tests, and they can run lots of them. Here's some classic DORA metrics that are really useful. Cycle time and deployment frequency tick the boxes because they're key indicators of how quickly and how cheaply can you make changes and get them in front of people, how quickly can you learn in this case. Scenario 2.
Another classic of the DORA metrics. So the use case is that your customers are unhappy with the quality and availability of your software. So you definitely need to do something within your team to improve quality. Some signals to look for are, receiving less complaints by the customer or seeing your uptime increasing. And again, here you can focus and tick the box on the DORA metrics for change fail rate and mean time to restore. Now, another interesting scenario, which is more deviating now into the space framework.
Yeah. So this one is more related to kind of team well-being and happiness. I mean, maybe you can raise a hand here who's been in a situation where half the team has left very quickly or gone on sick leave or, and it feels like things are just falling apart. I mean, I think this is something a lot of people can relate to. And here it's not about DORA. It's about, it's about team it's about keeping things together, It's about survival of the team and people's happiness. And, what you need to do is you need to raise those things instead of, focusing on, delivery criteria. So here, a good signal would be sickness is reduced or sense of achievement increases. And some things you can measure in this case is you can do weekly kind of team health checks, just click on one of these smileys on Friday afternoon, tell how things are going, or you can do more detailed employee engagement surveys, which are done less frequently. These are some things that, may be important for that team in that situation, and maybe 6 months later something else will be important, like scenario 4.
And last but not least, so in those 4 scenarios, we talk about efficiency, quality, happiness. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that definitely doesn't help productivity. But the last scenario is related to the performance of your software, right? And so imagine, I'll fix it later, but imagine you have successfully introduced a new feature in production, but the product manager is not happy about it. Of course, this is my favorite use case because we have introduced a feature in the landing page to increase the monthly subscription, but this is not actually happening. So some signals to look for are more like having the customers happy with our feature, or also increasing the subscription of our product, of course. So some metrics to look at are user adoption, customer satisfaction, or general NPS score, but also one metric from the SPACE framework related to performance, which is called investment balance. So challenge your team to measure and analyze the percentage of the time you're spending on new feature, bug fixes, infra work, legacy work, because that might change. So if you have some business goal or some target, some deadline that you want to meet, that might change and might trigger a conversation starter in your team, and that's where also the behavioral changes start. So that is one of the scenarios that you might end up with, where there are some metrics that could help. Now, those are, and of course it doesn't work anymore, but so we saw some scenario, we talk about productivity, but this is the money slide. So this is what we would like you to remember at the end of the presentation. To wrap it up, developer productivity has many dimensions, and it does need a balanced measurement, but there's no standard set of metrics that you can use to measure and improve productivity. So you need to start in your team, and you need to be empowered to set your own metrics and become accountable for this. So building an inspection routine and drive adoption and changes through that. Metrics, do not stick to one metrics, because metrics are situational and they can change over time. So if you improve something now, it doesn't mean that it needs to be a continuous improvement, or you might want to touch other areas. And last but not least, about the why. So why you should measure productivity, the most important reason is to find its link with happiness. We mentioned it at the beginning. We want to have happier developer, and then they will be more productive, or more productive developer will also be happier.
So let's wrap this up. There's an old Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. If you haven't started yet looking at productivity and also its link to happiness, today is a great time to start. We hope that this talk will provide you some tools and some insights on your journey today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was the end.